This episode may contain language or discussions that may be offensive or triggering. Refer to the episode summary for details. Welcome to She Confidential. My name is Charlene Ketchum, and today I am chatting with Angela Lewis with ALA Public Relations. And Angela and I went to high school together. This is the first time we've chatted in over 20
Oh,
years.
no.
I just realized that. Yeah, that would have been over 20 years ago. Before we started recording, I told Angela, I saw you at the gym one day, but I was rushing out the door and didn't get to say hello. So I've been watching, thanks to social media, we've been in touch. And I've been watching all the exciting things that you've been doing over the years, and just really excited to have you come and chat on She Confidential so we can catch up, but we can talk about your new PR agency and talk about your move to South America and talk about your past life and all the work that you've done with young athletes and your own work and experience as an athlete. So we've got a lot that we're going to cover, y'all. So Angela, thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Charlene, thank you for reaching out and inviting me on. I'm really excited to catch up after all this time. So I love the work that you're doing as well. She Confidential is so important for us. So I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, 20 years. 20 years.
Crazy. That's
What's
crazy.
neat is when I initially reached out, I wanted to talk about just things that parents can do to help support their children, specifically daughters who are athletes, because my niece recently started playing volleyball and had some questions about what should I be eating and how much sleep do I need, all those things. But when I think about the fact that we met 20 plus years ago in high school and what we get to do now in terms of trying to help make a positive impact in the world and just bring women together, it's just, you just never know how you'll grow up, how you'll glow up, and who you'll be able to connect with along the way. So it's just wow, that's really humbling and inspiring.
It is, and it's so true. The time just goes so fast, and it's always a blessing to be able to reconnect and to hear what's going on. And so I'm happy to offer any advice to your niece, because sports is near and dear to my heart. I played basketball growing up, and so I'm happy to answer any question around that and how we can help parents make sure their daughters are prepared for sports and for life.
Yeah, because it's all connected. Yeah, it's all that is connected. Everybody knows I was not an athlete. Not an athlete. I was telling Angela that I don't like to be competitive. And that's the source of anxiety for me. So I shied away. I failed a gym one semester because I didn't dress out. Because if I didn't dress out, they didn't let you participate. So I figured out I'm not going to dress out. I won't have to participate, and I'll sit over here and read a book. I'm not advocating that people do that, but but I have no knowledge in that area. But what I do like is that I have a great circle, and so I know who to go to when I need to get this information for others. So yeah, this will be a good chat. But before we get to talking about what my niece needs to be thinking about in terms of how she can maximize her performance as an athlete, let's get caught up on what you are doing these days, because you globe trotting and shaking things up. So what's going on?
So I recently moved to Medellin, Colombia. So I'm in South America now, and it's incredible. And so when I came here a few months ago, I launched a PR firm, ALA Public Relations. And as you know, I've published a number of books for young women. And so when I started publishing my books, the first time I did all of the reach out, trying to get on podcasts, trying to get news interviews, writing my press releases. My background's in communication. So I did all of that myself and realized that I could help some other people as well. So I started reaching out to people who had published books, or started reaching out to different people who have businesses and asked, hey, do you need help? And they're like, oh my God, yes, I need help. This is so stressful. I'm trying to run my business and I don't have time to reach out. And like we were talking about before we started recording, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs are usually in the thick of it and working to develop whatever product or service. And they don't have time to do all the research to find the best fit shows or to write press releases. And so I'm happy to be able to team up with entrepreneurs and authors and help them to increase their brand awareness and connect with their target audience.
Wow, that is so needed. That is so needed. And I think that we've kind of touched on that on several episodes, and I've been chatting with different guests just talking about like the stress of managing social media. And that's a beast all in itself. And to even thinking about writing your press releases and doing that outreach, because if people don't know that the platform exists or that the services are there, you can have a gold mine, but people don't know where to find it.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. And so it's great to be able to help people to really understand their brands, what they're looking for, how they can get more awareness, and then reach out and spread their messages and teach what they know to different audiences.
So at what point should someone reach out to work to a PR agency? Do they have to have a certain size audience? Is this something that they should do maybe during their development stage to get assistance with brand development? What's a good time for them to reach out to you?
I think it's a great time whenever at any stage in your business. So if you're at the beginning and you're thinking about launching a product or service and you want to get the word out. So for example, I had someone reach out because they're writing a book, but the book isn't finished. And they said, hey, should we wait until the book is released to start reaching out to go on interviews? And I said, well, think about the movies. When a movie's coming out, they'll tell you 6-8 months in advance, summer 2022, this movie's coming out. They don't give you the date, but you just know that it's coming. And so when you know that you're going to release a product or service, it's never too early to start that conversation. And then my PR firm, we can work with people to determine the timeline. We can work to determine the best timeline for actually getting started. But starting the conversation is never a bad time.
Yeah, I know that's something that people, even I, kind of consider, how do I prioritize this?
Sure.
Because you're doing a million things. And, people also think about, okay, my financial resources. What is the best investment for me at this stage? But as we talked about on another episode that focused more on like branding and marketing, PR, branding, and marketing, that is a worthwhile investment because, again, you can create this amazing program or service, but if people don't know that it exists,
yes,
you're not really having an impact. So it's definitely a worthwhile investment to make.
Absolutely. And, it's one part of your overall business, right? So there's PR, there's marketing, there's sales. All of them are important and they're connected together. And so it's important to think about the overall strategy, like you said, to make sure that you have all of them in alignment and that there is awareness coming to your business so you can generate more leads and grow.
Yeah. And so for people who have no marketing background and they are just starting out their new business and they don't know where to start, is it appropriate for them to contact you and say, hey, I know I need some assistance with outreach and generating leads, but I don't know anything about marketing? Do they need to have someone handling marketing already, or is it okay for them to approach you and get assistance with that component?
Well, I'm happy to talk to anyone if they want to have a conversation. And I would ask a series of questions. So we want to know, do you have a website or do you have a landing page? What is your current sales system? So how do you get people into your funnel? Those are all the different things that I would ask because you're right. We want to make sure that it makes sense. So for example, I had a conversation with someone last week who has a book and it's on Amazon, but she doesn't have a website. Well, Amazon is great, and we know it's the marketplace for all books. However, when someone buys your book on Amazon, you have no idea who bought your book because Amazon does not share their customer information with you. Unless you're a major publishing house, maybe they'll share it. But for most individuals, when I published my books, Amazon didn't let me know who purchased it. And so part of the conversation that I like to have with people is, well, where can your customers go, your potential customers go, where you can actually capture their contact info so that you can continue to inform them, you can update them, and even just thank them for being a customer. So we have those conversations prior to getting started, because I don't want someone to get started if all those other elements aren't in place.
Yeah. And I think what's an amazing value that you bring, because there's a lot of PR firms out there, but what I love about you is that you've been on the other side of it as well.
Yes.
As an entrepreneur, as a published author. And so you've got a perspective that a lot of people don't have. There's one thing to have the knowledge and how to practice it, and this is how it should be in terms of this is our PR mix. But there's another thing to have experienced it, and you know what it is that you needed and the type of support that you needed. That's a huge value that you bring to your clients. So I want to talk a little bit about your experience as a published author and all of that.
Yes. So I really believe that words have the power to change the trajectory of someone's life. Like, I really believe that. I believe in words. I believe in books. And I know that before I started the PR agency, I was working with young people. I was coaching basketball and training. I played professionally, coached at every level. And so my first few books were really aimed at making sure that young women specifically had a framework for success and they were inspired. And so those books were really like motivational and informational for adolescent girls and then for college girls who play sports. And it was hard. It was just hard trying to do everything by myself and trying to do everything alone and doing all the reach out as well as working on the books. And so I definitely love that I'm now able to help other people and be a support for them and take some of that load off because I know what that entails.
And that makes me think of something else. So you've been on the other side of it, not just as an author, but as someone trying to promote their work. And so that's something else that you can assist people with, just being able to speak and being able to handle yourself in an interview and kind of develop talking points and those things. So I'd like to kind of talk a little bit about that, not just for adults who may be entrepreneurs, but even in the mindset of just teenagers, athletes, who are at the high school level and even at the college level, because even though I'm not an athlete, I watch TV and I see social media, and athletes, especially, even high school and college age ones, they're in front of the camera. They have to do interviews. They have to be somewhat media savvy. So I'd like to talk a little bit about your experiences doing that when you were in athletics and as an author, and then the services that your PR firm can provide to help people with that media training.
Sure. One of the things that's really challenging for athletes, and I felt this way when I played in, high school, college, and even professionally, is after the game, you're so emotional. You're either on a high or a low. Typically, they come and talk to you when you win. So usually on an emotional high. And being able to be poised when there's a camera. As you mentioned, there are cameras everywhere these days. Cell phones. People are ready to interview and want to hear what you have to say. And so my advice for young athletes, high school and college, is to gain your composure prior to starting to talk. And maybe take a deep breath, count backwards from 5 just to gain your composure. The second thing is to have some answers and responses that are in your back pocket, I like to say. And what I mean by that is always thank your coaches, always give credit to your teammates, always give credit to the other team. Regardless of win or loss, always give credit to the competitors. You'll see when we look at the professionals, that's key. That shows maturity, and it shows that you actually recognize that it's not just about you. In a day and age when we're taking selfies all the time and everything's about me, it shows a lot of character to actually give some credit to other people who are involved in the win. Then the third thing I would say is always thank the person who's interviewing you, right? So if it's a newspaper, someone who's from the newspaper or the local news, You want to say their names and thank them for the interview, because they're going to have to interview someone else again. And you want to be the person who they know is going to present a great interview. And you want to be the person that they know they can come to for poise, and who's going to be able to, represent your school or your university really well.
Yeah, as you were saying those things, I was thinking about press conferences I've seen
Mm-hmm.
with athletes, and I've always felt, I think empathy is the best word, because even if someone had a big win, it just seems so emotional, and it's like, I know after I finish working out, I'm sweaty,
Yeah.
I'm gross, I'm thirsty. The last thing I want to do is talk to anybody, which is why when I saw you at the gym that day, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so gross and I'm really late. I'm gonna have to see her next time. And so these folks, they have to sit down and be composed and answer all these questions that are usually an attempt to critique everything they did and didn't do. And it seems they also have to talk to them even when they don't win, which seems like that would be really tough to do. So, do you have any tips for how do you handle those conversations when it's not a win?
Sure. So when it's not a win, first thing you want to do is always thank your team, thank the other team, give props to the other team for competing. The second thing is, do not bash your teammates on camera. Like, whatever, if you felt like your teammates should have made the 3-pointer, or if you felt like one of your teammates should have played better defense and that contributed, it's always a team effort. So the first thing is thank the other team for being competitors. The second thing is never humiliate your team or your coaches. Never say anything like, well, if my coach would have called this other play, then things would have been better. Never do that. You have to go back and be with these people. You don't want a media uproar because of dissension within your team based on something you said out of emotion. And then the third tip I would say is always look forward and talk about what you did well and how things will be better in the future. So for example, we're going to go back tomorrow and practice our defense. That 2-3 zone is going to be better next time. I believe in my teammates. I believe we can do it. That's really important. It shows maturity and it shows a willingness to bounce back and get after it, even after an emotional loss.
Yeah, I like how you're reframing that negative. So you're also leaving the interviewer with you're kind of guiding how they're going to frame their coverage of you when you flip it that way.
Yes, you want to control. You can't control what they're going to ask, but you can control how you're going to respond.
Yeah, absolutely. And for people who are entrepreneurs, how do those tips differ a bit for them? So for someone who has a coaching program, for example, or someone who has just published a book, what kind of tips do you have for them in conducting interviews? Like how do they promote themselves, and what information do they need to be prepared to share?
Oh, great questions. What I would start with is having key talking points. So typically when you own a business and you have an interview, you know that it's coming. Very rarely are you caught off guard. After the game, you don't necessarily know if you're going to be the one they call to interview unless you score 50 points. They're probably coming for you. But, you can usually prep. So you want to have key talking points and a brand story. So you want to be able to talk about a quick story about how your business came to be, who you are, and why this matters. So for example, I published 4 books, I've played professional basketball, and I've had interviews since I was 12 years old. And so I wanted to be able to help other people prep for interviews well and to promote their products and services because I know how hard it is. So that's the story of my brand and how this ALA public relations came to be. So you want a brand story. That's part 1. Part 2, you want key talking points about your business and how you serve your clients. For example, podcasting allows people to raise brand awareness. We're on a podcast now. It allows people to connect with their target market. And it also allows people to generate leads that can ultimately become sales and customers for their business. that was well thought out prior to this interview. So you want to be able to really think about what you offer, and you're able to say it in a very concise way that your audience can understand. So have a story about who you are, how you came to be, and then have 3, 5 max talking points about your business.
And that is one of the other benefits of working with a PR agency like ALI Public Relations, because you would be able to help your clients develop that brand story and those talking points.
Yes. Yes, they're key because you only get so much time to capture someone's attention. And people are only going to remember so much. People love stories. We learn through stories and parables from when we're young. And then we remember, we think in bullet points and outlines. So we want to remember those little things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those are great tips. Yeah, definitely great tips. And that's not everybody's strong suit. I read somewhere, and I don't know if this is still true, but that public speaking is like one of the top fears
It
for
is.
a lot of people.
It is. And it's the fear of judgment. It's the fear of being wrong. It's the fear of humiliation, of not saying something right. It is a big fear. But with practice, it can get better. And then just knowing what you're going to talk about, even you don't want to be scripted with everything that you say, but you want to have some key talking points that you understand and that are true and authentic that you can utilize when in conversations about your business.
Yeah. And I read another thing that I read somewhere with that truth and authenticity. It's just knowing how much to share, because there's a lot that may be true and authentic, but it's also how far do you, how much do you share? Because you might have some interviewers who'll throw you a curveball question that maybe you didn't prepare for.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you handle those situations? And I think that a lot of times that may be how like the media catches up a lot of people who are public figures and celebrities. They throw them these curveball questions just at the worst time, because they know they're not going to do what you suggested in the beginning and take a breath and count backwards from 5 and just get your bearings, once you always have the right to do. Like, I've been in situations in interviews, even on job interviews, if you need to take a moment to think, take that moment. That's the best thing to do. But when you've got that adrenaline and all this emotion, it can be a little bit hard. So one of the things, if you have any tips on that, like, how do people decide how much of themselves to share? And I know that this is really very applicable when you start talking about people whose brand stories are founded on something personal.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes when you crack the door open a little bit and you've got this book maybe about a divorce that you went through, and now they want to say, well, are you dating now? Or what's, how do you decide how much am I going to share, even though my brand story is founded on something personal? Does that mean I have to give all my business away?
You're never obligated to answer any question you don't want. That's key, is knowing that you are still a person. Oftentimes interviewers may forget that there are things that are challenging for us. So you get to create those boundaries, and you can say, I'm not comfortable answering that question. You can ask them to reframe it in another way. So sometimes the question is asked and we're not really sure what they're saying. So you can paraphrase for clarification. So did you really mean to ask, am I open to pursuing new relationships now? Using the reference that you used before, going through a divorce. Yeah. So you may say something like that, or you may say, you know what, some things that I like to remain private about, and then make a joke out of it. Jokes are a great way to keep rapport and to move the conversation along without necessarily creating tension in that interview.
I like that. So do you offer interview coaching services?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's important to prep. A number of my clients, we've prepped prior to their interviews just to make sure they had key talking points, to make sure that they felt comfortable and confident. And we did a mock interview so that we could practice, because practice, in playing sports, it's like everything. Practice is key to build confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Okay, so everybody listening, key thing, if you are one of the many who have that fear of public speaking, that is another value from ALA public relations, because I know for a lot of people that's a big one. And knowing that you have some place where you can go just to get that support so that you present your most polished self. And the more preparation you do, like you said, the more comfortable you will be. The more comfortable. And when you're comfortable, it shows the delivery. You'll be more authentic and you'll have fun, because chatting with people is supposed to be fun.
It is.
That's the thing of it is. It really should be fun. I mean, yes, you're promoting, you're trying to sell your business, but at the end of the day, like ideally, this is a passion of yours,
Mm-hmm.
because if you're in this role, it's your probably your business. This is your passion. And so treat it as such and have a good time with it. Like it doesn't have to be all just business and just, stiff and all that. Have fun with it. And so that's what I love a lot about the suggestions that you offered, particularly the one about making it a joke. Because I know a lot of times, especially for women, and because we've been conditioned to be polite and make sure other people are very comfortable. And that's a problem. That's a problem. And I still deal with that. Like I don't like I said earlier, I didn't play sports because I like to compete and have people mad at me if we didn't win. And so I still have to learn how to say, okay, am I comfortable with that or no, without feeling like I need to explain why I'm saying no, so that the person understands and accepts my no. So that's something that I still am trying to find that comfort with myself. And so I appreciate when you suggested, you know, put the burden back on that interviewer to mind their manners.
Yes.
Because folks know what they're doing a
Yes.
lot of times. It's like, you know you're not supposed to ask people all of that. And people will do it because, they want to see if they can get the tea, because that's what people like to hear.
True.
They want to see who's got the dirt, who got the tears, who got that uncomfortable moment, because they forget this person is bigger than a brand. They're bigger than the newspaper cover. They are a human being. And you don't need to ask someone something that will shatter them in an interview, because when that interview is over, they have to go back to the rest of their life. So I really appreciate the way you frame those questions, or responses to those kind of questions, because it allows the the subject of the interview to put the burden back on that interviewer to mind their manners and keep it moving. But it also lets other people see, you know what? I'm going to protect my space and my energy.
Exactly.
And so hopefully others will know I'm not going to do that with her,
No.
because she's going to put me in my place.
Yes. And there's a way to do that with grace and poise.
Yes. Yeah. Which is why I like that you have this experience working with young athletes, because as we all know, it's harder to kind of retrain ourselves as we get older, because we're so conditioned, particularly as women. And so we have to push through all these things that we've been taught and that we practiced all of our lives. And when you can work with young people, then it's a little bit easier because they haven't been operating in this nonsense for so long.
Very true. And young people are oftentimes receptive, especially to a coach, right? Coaches have a very special place in the lives of young people because they trust what they're saying, typically. Occasionally not, depending on how well your season's going. But typically, if they made the choice to play on your team, they trust what you have to say. And coaches have an incredible impact on the way that young people can learn about media and handle the media as well.
How do parents, and so on the outside, this is me,
Sure.
Not being an athlete or having kids, but I hear a lot of people talk about the parents and how they get in the way of the coaches. And generally, I'm not talking about professional sports, obviously, but how you have that mom who's at the game. It's like, why isn't my kid, playing and all these different things. Like, what are your tips for parents in knowing, like, when do they need to fall back and trust the coach and let the coach lead and develop the kid versus when do they need to intervene?
If your child health is at risk, physical, mental health is at risk, we need to intervene. That's important. That's protected. If your kid isn't playing, there's a myriad of reasons why your child may not be playing. Parents aren't in practice every day, so kids come home, and I've heard this time, kids will tell their parents their side of what happened, and it's through a very, very narrow lens. However, coaches have to look at the macro level. When I coached, we had to look at every player and look at how every player fit into the mix. And oftentimes parents and kids are only thinking about themselves, oftentimes. And I understand. Everybody wants to play, everybody wants to do well, but we have to really look at the whole team and what's best for the team, and trust that the coach and coaching staff has the best interest of everyone at heart. And the last thing is, we have to let them struggle. They have to struggle. They have to know what it feels like to not win sometimes. They have to know what it feels like to have to bounce back when you played a terrible game and not be coddled. They have to know what it feels like to have to work harder than they think they have to work because they thought they were good enough and they're not. Like, you're just not good enough yet. But that doesn't mean you can't get there. Those are the honest conversations that parents can have with their child. If your kid is the 8th player, 9th, 10th, maybe the conversation is, what do you need to do so that you can move up? What do you need to do consistently? Not what do you need to do one time, one day. It's what do you need to do consistently that's going to allow you to have an opportunity to get on the court more. And it's not fun, but it's part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because I've heard the parents, and it's so funny that you said, like, the kids, they're giving a sliver of that reality, because they're only looking at it from their own point of view,
Mm-hmm.
and I want this opportunity to play, and that's the nature of being a young person. They're not there yet. They're not developed yet to be able to see the big picture or to even recognize, as great as I think I am, I'm not that great yet.
No, no,
And that's okay.
and that is okay. I mean, only 1% of high school athletes play Division I sports. So there's a very, very slim number who will actually have the opportunity to play at the next level, which brings up the point of just being honest. Like, maybe they just don't want to work that hard. And that's okay. If you don't want to work hard, then don't complain that you're not playing because you chose not
Yeah.
to work hard. It's the same in business, right? Either you're going to work and give yourself an opportunity, or you're not, and it won't. And you won't have the opportunity. So,
Yeah,
a lot
we
of lessons.
as parents got to keep it real with them.
Have to be
That's
real. Have to be real. And that doesn't mean, so I think there's a fine balance between being real with your child and being condescending and demeaning. It's a very fine balance, because at the end of the day, they're still your child, whether they score 30 points or not. And they're still your child, whether they perform well or not. I see sometimes parents take it personally when their kid doesn't do well athletically, as if their athletic performance is a reflection of their quality of parenting. And that's hard. That can be hard for both of them, I presume. But definitely continue to love them beyond their athletic performance, because they're going to need to know that when they stop playing, there's so much more than an athlete.
And what are other ways that parents need to be supporting their kids when they're in sports? Like when we talked about earlier, is for nutrition and sleep and things. Are those things that their coaches kind of give them guidance on, or are there some special things that parents need to keep in mind? Because we know that America is one of the unhealthiest nations when it comes to eating processed food and not getting enough sleep and just stress management and all those things. And even though we're talking about young people, we know that they're not exempt from those bad habits and
They're not,
unhealthy lifestyles, unfortunately.
they're not exempt. And you made the really good point when you said habits. They're habits. And so being able to step away from only focusing on training and on the court and looking at the whole person and seeing what are the areas that need improvement that would help them on the court, but that would help them for their life. So a few tips when we're talking about how do we help young people prepare. The first thing is focus on recovery just as much, if not more, than actual performance. So what does recovery look like? It's quantity of water you're drinking. Have to stay hydrated. Most athletes are losing so many electrolytes just from sweating and practicing. That has to be replenished for their system. I mean, our bodies are systems that require certain things for them to function optimally. Mm-hmm. So water is important. Of course, nutrition. You know, nutrition is key. But nutrition isn't a one type of nutrition for every athlete. Everyone's body is different. And so athletes have to be clear about how food makes them feel. We know that fruits and vegetables are always great, but certain fruits and certain vegetables just don't function well in certain people's systems. And that's okay. You have to figure out what works for you. Then the third thing I would say is rest. Rest meaning actually having an off season. We live in a day and age where if you're not working, someone else is working. And if you're not training, then you need to be training more and more and more. But your body has limits and has systems. It's a system and your body has limits. Mm-hmm. And so understanding that it's okay to take a break, to give your body time to recover, and then go back to training hard. So those are different things that coaches and parents can work together on. But I highly recommend seeking professional advice. So actually seeing an athletic trainer, someone who is an athletic trainer and devising an actual training plan. Actually seeing a chiropractor to make sure that you're aligned. So having a team of medical professionals, whether it's through your insurance or private practice, who can ensure that your body and your system is healthy for your life beyond sports. It'll only help you as an athlete as well.
Wow, I didn't know about athletic trainers. That's really neat.
Yeah, okay. Strength and conditioning. There's a lot that's happening these days with strength and conditioning coaches outside of your team, specifically for high school. College players have it. They have strength and conditioning coaches who devise plans for their performance, athletic performance. So that same thing is really beneficial at the younger levels as well.
Wow. Yeah. See, so is there, when their kids start to play sports, where do they go to get all this information? Like, should they just go talk to the coach and say, hey, what do I need to be doing at home to keep this kid healthy as a whole person and not just as an athlete? Like, is the coach the best place to start? Or are there organizations or associations for parents?
That's a really good question. I think the coaches are always a great place to start. Junior NBA, so juniornba.com or nbajunior.com, has some really great resources for parents and youth coaches. USA Basketball has some very great resources for parents and youth coaches. I highly recommend, though, going to a strength and conditioning professional because they can tell you about your child's alignment. For example, a lot of girls tear their ACLs. It's pretty common to have knee injuries. And part of it is because the way that our bodies are made, right? So our knees come in, we're young. Well, they have to actually build up their glute muscles, that's their butt muscles, their quads and their hamstrings in order to be able to handle the impact. So the average coach may or may not know what exercises to do to enhance the strength in quads and hamstrings. And so the overuse oftentimes create weakness and players end up injured. So I highly recommend strength and conditioning coaches. Nutritionists, there's nothing wrong with seeing a nutritionist early. We know the nutrition is critical, but our coaches don't necessarily know what every child's body needs outside of water, of course, because everyone needs that. But we need to know what specifically is great for our bodies based on our goals, which is another conversation because my goals may be different than yours, and we're going to just need different fuel to get there.
Yeah. Wow. So these are all the people on the teams. So when I hear, I watched Michael Jordan's um, docu series,
Yeah,
which was really good, by the
the
way.
last chance.
Yeah. Yes, it was, and I didn't think I would really enjoy it, but I really did because I was like, oh my gosh, are they just gonna show like all the games and stuff? And I was really, and I actually watched basketball when he played. I watched basketball because I absolutely loved it. And I don't know what happened, like somewhere along the way, I was like, okay, I just stopped watching, but I loved it when he played. And so I really enjoyed watching the series because they showed clips from games. I was like, I watched that
Yeah,
game.
it was
The
very
one when he was really sick with the flu. I was like, I watched that game. But it was like amazing to see that he had an entire team of people helping keep him well.
yes.
And I thought, wow, like, I already had this high regard for athletes because to be able to perform like that every day is just the discipline, first of all, is just, I can't even imagine. But I suspect that maybe it's a little more bearable when you have a group of people who are telling you precisely what you need to do. Because for a lot of us, we're guessing. We're just guessing or we're trying to mimic what the next person is doing. And like you said, that may not be what your body needs. I was talking to my trainer a few weeks ago because a friend of mine had injured herself. She's doing this kickboxing class online. And she said, I can't believe I hurt my leg doing kickboxing. And I said, well, I did kickboxing when Billy Blanks, the Tavo was like really popular. Um, I did that years ago. I said, and I'll tell you, it's like if you turn or bend the wrong way and all those things, if you're not just aware of your body, if you're not properly stretching, all those different things, or just like warming up, all that. I said, I'm not surprised you hurt yourself doing that. But everybody's body is in a different place. And particularly because so many of us sit, including young people. I'm sure athletes, they don't sit as much as the rest of us, but still, it's our lifestyles aren't necessarily conducive to keeping our bodies as agile as they could or should be. So
Yeah.
I really like that, there are all these resources for young people because I saw Michael Jordan had this whole crew and I'm like, okay, that's how they do it. Like, wow. But it's nice that they're available for young people as well so that we can maybe prevent them from having those injuries because you mentioned the ACLs and I'm like I have heard of young people tearing those and I'm like I always thought that was something that only happened to people in professional sports just from like all that overuse because they're in professional sports.
Mm-hmm.
But when you break it down to just understanding how important it is to have a strong core, have strong glutes and everything. Yeah, you need professionals to help you with that.
Absolutely. Those professionals make a big difference because they can tell you exactly the exercises that you can do in order to get better quicker, opposed to just trying to do everything on your own. And what happens a lot of time with athletes, if they're having a pain, they dismiss it. Oh, that's okay. Well, that's okay. There's a fine balance between fighting through injury, recovering from injury, and being hurt. Everyone plays hurt. Like something hurts on most athletes just because of the wear and tear. However, the being injured, if something's broken, you need to give your body a chance to have that recover in order for you to get better.
Yeah. Yeah. And the people are available to help you do that. Unfortunately, like you aren't directly here in the States to do that because you are in Colombia now. So they'll have to go to somebody else. So we've got to talk about you in Colombia. Like, how did you end up making that move? And just, yeah, like, wow.
Ever since I played ball in Germany, I knew that I was infatuated with living in other countries. It's exciting. You're learning a new language. Every day, everything is new. Like there's always something new to learn. And COVID happened 2020. We're still dealing with COVID right now, the Delta variant. But when things first happened, it forced all of us to sit down and reevaluate our life.
Mm-hmm.
And Charlene, when that happened, I started thinking about, okay, how do I want to live? Where do I want to be? And I knew I wanted to be somewhere warm. Um, I knew I wanted to see the mountains. I love the mountains. I wanted to be in a place that was really diverse in terms of food, fruits, and vegetables, tropical.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be in a tropical climate. I knew that. So I started looking in Central America. And I have friends who live here. And the long story short is I came to visit them last December of 2020, when no one was traveling. I was like, I think I'm going to go because most people aren't going anywhere. Now's a good time. So I came to visit them and had an incredible time. I did a basketball clinic for a team, this basketball club in a city called Manizales, and just knew that this is where I wanted to be. And so I actually booked my flight back here before I left. And ended up going back to St. Louis and selling everything, my car, got rid of everything, digitized all my photos, and came back here March 1st. But you saw some basketball events I had in St. Louis. So I was coming back and forth from March through the end of July, running these different programs. And then they ended in July. And I've been here since August 1st.
Wow. Yeah, because I saw the photos and I said, oh, I love her vacations. Yeah, because I hadn't realized that you had relocated. So I was like, okay, I didn't realize this was the layover.
Right. An extended layover. So I kept it low. Sometimes, in life, sometimes you can't say anything yet. There are times you just have to let things play out. You have to get everything in order before you can say, hey, here's what's happening. And so that's the process that I was under pretty much all of this year until now.
That's so exciting. So how hard was it to just, uproot? I know you said you sold everything and just,
I did.
Logistically.
I did one of the hardest things that for athletes to do. So I threw away all like my trophies and medals. I had to detach from it for a few reasons. One, nobody really cares what I did in the 8th grade. Like at this point, I'm almost 40. Like it doesn't matter. No one.
Okay, that's true.
The state AAU tournament that we won, in '96 or whatever. The other thing is that stuff is heavy. Like the older I get, the heavier it gets. And I was just like hauling these boxes around, never looking at them, but swearing that I needed them. And so a really good friend of mine who went through the process years prior said, okay, you can take a picture of it and then go leave and run an errand. And then I'm going to get rid of some of this stuff for you because you can't live the way that you want to live and the vision that you have holding on to all this stuff. Let the stuff go. So parts of it was really hard, but I knew the vision that I had meant that I couldn't hold on to all these things. I knew that I couldn't, so I let go of gave it all. And then it became like a game. Like, who needs this coat that I haven't worn in 3 years? Or who could use this? And then it ended up blessing so many people because we hold on to so many things that someone else could be using right now. And then that opened the doors to be able to start the agency because I was able to really see myself differently and to essentially like re-establish myself for myself and not be attached to who I was that was holding me in a place that wasn't what I had for me. That wasn't the vision that I had. So COVID really shifted everything, had some friends here, and then I just went through the process of getting rid of everything and reimagining and re-envisioning what life could be like.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm proud of you. It's inspiring. It's really inspiring. So we have our person in common, Marquita L with L's Wellness, which I'm wearing my shirt. And Marquita and she's my wellness coach and your client, and through ALA Public Relations. And one of the things that I'm working on with Marquita is sort of decluttering. I'm big on mementos, and I have things from the third grade. So when you mentioned your trophies, like I have a couple boxes of different awards and stuff as a kid, and I was like, oh my gosh, she threw away hers. I I should do that too because I haven't looked at them. Girl, I couldn't tell you
You don't know.
like what all was in there. Like that's
Mhm.
what's so ridiculous. And so when you said that, I was like, oh my God, that's me. That's me.
You know, I took a picture of it all and wrote it all down. So if I wanted to recreate it, I could. I know
Okay.
exactly what trophy shop to go to if I want trophies. So, so I got rid of it, but I can still see it if I need to.
Okay.
Yeah, only if it makes sense for you. Like this just made sense for what I wanted and what I needed
Mm-hmm.
at this moment in my life. Other people, you know, they want to show their kids and grandkids. I have no intention on having any. So, like, I didn't have that
Yeah.
need to want to show them to someone. But some people do. So,
Yeah.
I definitely think that my journey makes sense for me.
Yeah.
But not necessarily for everyone else. Some people don't want to live in a place where where they don't know the language. You have to try to figure out what people are saying every day, all the time. I'm cool with that. It's like a game. Eventually, I start learning and we start having conversations, and that makes sense for me.
Yeah. Yeah. What I love about what you're doing and what you're saying is just allowing yourself to just experience life.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have all these things, and over the past few years I really have been decluttering, and I don't have, like, I'm not a hoarder. It's just I keep mementos,
Yeah.
and I keep a lot of things, and I've always liked living in places with a lot of space, which much more space than I need. And I have a lot of clothes and all these things, and so when you mentioned the coat and everything, it's like, and I gave a lot of things away. I had moved to Jefferson City for work for a few years, and then I moved back to St. Louis in 2019. And so I had gotten rid of a lot of things before I moved back to St. Louis. But I truly could get rid of a lot more when you think about what is it that you're using day to day
Mm-hmm.
and why. I mean, the big thing that you just said is, what's my why for holding on to these things? Everybody's going to have a different why. And in every season of your life, it may evolve, but just really understanding, why am I attached to this? Like, I probably have like over 40 scarves.
Really?
I don't even wear, yeah, because you see them and you're like, oh, this is really cute. Or this one looks cute with this coat. Or, whatever. Or, I just like this color. So I'm going to get this. And there are scarves I've never worn. It's bad. Like, it's like, yeah.
You may go on a gifting spree for scarves.
Yes, yes, yes. You have inspired me. I'll take photos as I get rid of things.
Yeah, send them to me.
Because it's freeing.
It is.
It is very liberating. When I got rid of a lot of stuff when I left Jefferson City, it was like, wow, like, because you're carrying all this stuff around. And for me, a lot of it is like the association with it. Because especially clothing and things, I can look at a piece of clothing and remember like when I wore it, or of a, just a whole memory and happy things, or all that stuff. That's why I cling to a lot of stuff. But it's all in here.
It is.
I don't have to attach it to something else. So thank you for sharing that, because that is encouraging and motivating, because Marquita knows that's one of my goals, to continue to kind of purge.
Mm-hmm.
And you purged a lot.
It's a
And
process. Whew. It's a process, from leaving the apartment to getting rid of clothes, to getting rid of things. I mean, all of it. It was definitely a process. I read I don't know if it's an article or YouTube video I heard about a woman named Rosetta Thurman. And her brand is Happy Black Woman. Have you heard of her?
I haven't.
So Happy Black Woman is her brand. I think she started maybe in 2012, years ago. And I remember I'm pretty sure it was YouTube, because I remember seeing her talk about everything she owns fits in a carry-on suitcase. And she would travel around doing conferences for women and Black women business owners for her target, helping them build a business. And I was just intrigued by how she does it. And I was like, oh, I could totally do that. Like, that's my goal. So, but it took nearly a decade to get to this point. And then I get to this point and I'm like, okay, you can only have a carry-on. So I evaluated everything that I wear on a day-to-day basis, which usually ends up in something athletic. Then I have a few pair of jeans and a couple of dresses and switch off a few shirts. Yeah, so everything, like if I had to leave today, I would have a carry-on and my backpack and I would be able to go. So I was excited about that as a potential for my life.
That is awesome. Because you know what? If the zombie apocalypse happens,
See?
and so I have a circle of friends, we watch The Walking Dead. And so we would always talk about like if the zombie apocalypse happens, are you ready? And it's like I I be running around here trying to I have two cats, grab my cats and all these different things. But it's like when you really think about just simplifying and purging, if that's what makes sense and it's possible for your life, just think about this less that you have to be responsible for. Like you have to have space to accommodate all these things, is you worry about like all these things. And if something happens, you've got to deal with like all these things and move them with you.
Yes. And I've had all the things. I'm so glad you said that, right? I've had them all. I've had the house, I've had the car that constantly broke down, the luxury vehicle that you thought was cool until you realize it costs more to fix it. The tires cost more. The gas costs more. Like everything costs more. I mean, I've had all of those things. And I didn't have the mental space or the just emotional freedom to be and to create. I'm so much more creative now. So much more. So I'm excited about this life and really hope that a lot more people, if it makes sense in whatever timing makes sense for them, they're able to go on this journey of, releasing and letting go of things because it changes you in the best of ways.
Yeah, absolutely. This was an unexpected topic, but I appreciate it. And that's, I think that we get messages through so many vessels and in unexpected places. And so you were my confirmation that to continue to do this because my friends would tell you, I've always had this thing about houses. And so I look at these huge mansions because I've always envisioned having a big house and I can have my grandma come stay there, my mom come stay there. Because I'm not a person who could be a caregiver, but I want everybody in the house and then I'll get some people to come in and take care of them.
Exactly.
And then I could also have all my friends come over and we could have like cookouts and movie night and girl night. So I just wanted a place for everybody to come. But that may have been what I really wanted when I was 25. But the older I get and really just start thinking about like, how can I really just be free and enjoy my life? That feels less appealing.
Yeah.
Because you got to clean this big space. You're going to have stuff in all these rooms. And then you create attachments to all this stuff. The cycle continues.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. I will have to look up the Happy Black Woman. I see people travel with their carry-on bags and I'm envious because I'm that person. Girl, I got to carry on. I'm taking everything on the plane that they let you take on the bag, the plane. Plus, I'm going to take 2 bags and checked, even if I got to pay for them, because I'm like, I need an empty bag to bring back stuff. So it's a situation. Yeah, it's a situation. But I'm getting it together. You're a confirmation that I will continue my therapeutic purging. Yeah. And I'm no longer accumulating additional things.
Oh, that's huge. So that's half the battle right there.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I'm not. Now that we can do everything electronic, like I used to have so many books and things, I'm not buying all the books anymore. I don't buy DVDs and all that stuff anymore. And I do miss something nice, especially about books, to hold and turn, pages in a book. But I'll just go to the library and get the books if I want a hard copy. But not accumulating new things, even clothes, all that stuff, with the exception of buying shirts from my friends.
That's different.
Just not accumulating all that stuff. So thank you. That's so inspiring. So for the audience, like, oh my gosh, like can y'all share what you think about just decluttering and purging things, like really downsizing in your life? If you've done it, share your experience. If you're thinking about doing it, what is holding you back from doing it? For me, I know it's the mementos uh, and sentimental value attached to a lot of things, and then habit, just habit.
You know, I used to, when I traveled, I used to get a magnet because I wanted a magnet of every place that I went. And then I realized I don't have a fridge. Like, I don't have a fridge that I own. That I have all the time. Why do I keep collecting all these magnets? So I stopped collecting them and just started taking pictures. And I used to collect, when I started decluttering, Charlene, I found a bunch of postcards because people actually used to send postcards before we would FaceTime and put pictures on social media, you know. So that was, I found a bunch of things, and I took a lot of stuff to the Goodwill and gave a lot away.
Yeah. Oh, I'm taking vacation the last week of the year. It's my birthday, and it's going to be a staycation. Usually I plan a trip away, but I think I am going to do a staycation because just doing a week of doing nothing sounds very appealing to me. But I think this may be what I'm doing because it's actually relaxing. As much as I hold on to things, it's actually relaxing to get rid of it because that's less responsibility for me because it's gone now.
Exactly.
So I think I may be doing that because I actually have an entire shelf in a cabinet in the kitchen filled with shot glasses because I buy shot glasses every place I go. I don't even do shots. I don't do shots unless I'm like at a club or something, but I've never done shots at home. Yet I have an entire shelf filled with shot glasses.
And that's so normal. It's just normal. It's okay. But there's somebody who does shots who will happily take those off of your hands and be excited to drink out of the shot glass from Vegas or whatever. They're waiting.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Wow. Okay. That is that's gonna be interesting.
Please keep me posted on how that goes.
I will. I have shot glasses from Germany too, so
very cool.
Yes, yeah, but you're not collecting things, so I can't give those to you.
I'll drink mine out of any glass.
Yeah. Is there anything that you want to share or add about ALA public relations? Just if you could give us a highlight of all the services that you provide and then tell us where we can follow you, your website.
Yes. This has been so great talking to you, by the way. This has been amazing. I've loved every minute of catching up. Thank you for inviting me on to share all of the things that have happened in the past 20 years. It's been a while. So ALA Public Relations, our goal is to help experts and authors build brand awareness, connect with their target market, and then generate leads through podcast booking. For authors or experts who are in need of additional services such as press releases, press kits, one-pagers, we are able to help create those as well. And you can reach us at AngelaRLewis.com. And on social media, Angela_R_Lewis.
Excellent. Thank you for just being brave and stepping out and just living, like being an inspiration. If the last year hasn't taught us anything else, is that, we get to choose. We have a lot more options than we've been told that we have. And I mean, just figure out what it is that makes you happy and pursue it.
Yes.
Even if that means making a major shift, because you made a major shift, but it will increase your lifespan. And more importantly, it's going to increase the joy that you have every day in your life. And that's what it's all about.
It is. It is. Find joy, find your peace, find your ideal day. That was the turning point. One of my friends said, "What is your ideal day?" And I wrote it down and started bawling and tore it up because it wasn't. It was something that I just been conditioned to believe that life had to be. And then I calmed myself down, wiped my snot, and actually wrote up my ideal day. And then just started moving toward it. So I'm grateful to be able to be in this space and help people share their stories because there are so many amazing people doing amazing things. I'm excited to be able to help them.
Thank you. I'm excited for you. I'm excited. Just, yeah. Thank you for chatting with me. Thank you for all that you're doing. And everyone, all the information to follow Angela will be in the description box for the podcast app and YouTube and on the she.confidential.com website. So thank you, Angela Lewis. I'm Charlene Ketchum, and this is She Confidential. Until next time.